I'm not going to quit. I just want to see myself in a uniform, supporting the community as a police officer, and I'll do whatever it takes to do it.
All right, so good afternoon. Welcome to the Hindsight, the podcast of the Rhode Island National Guard. Today we have representatives from the Civilian Police Officer Pathway Program. We're joined by
Lieutenant Chris Zarrella.
from the Rhode Island State Police.
Correct.
And
Sergeant Lewis Walton, or Recruit Walton, as better known as of right now.
you are 118th?
115th Military Police Company. I just switched over to 243rd RTI training
Awesome.
regiment.
Well, thank you both for joining us. So today we're going to talk about the Cpop, the Civilian to Police Officer Pathway Program. I guess there probably should be two P's at the end of that, but
There is, but
it would be hard to market that as a...
it's a pilot program right now. We're still working out the kinks.
All right, so you want to tell us a little bit about that program?
Absolutely. I came back from overseas deployment, and I was like, I really want to get back into an active role in trying to better myself. And law enforcement was right at the forefront. I was like, all right, let me start and put my applications out there. But then I was like, hey, you know what? There's this new program coming out that the National Guard was able to acquire 2 seats in this upcoming academy. It's totally unheard of. We have no idea what it's like, but just be ready for that. I reached out to a few mentors of mine in the military who are also police officers, and they said that if the opportunity presents itself, take this chance and do it. So I went with it. It was the same rigors as any other department that would reach out for an application. You know, we had to do a background check. We had to do a physical fitness test. We had to do a oral board. And I was one of 2 who were chosen for this program. And I could not be more grateful that I was selected.
Okay, so when you say academy, can you tell us a little bit about what he means when he says the academy?
So he is attending the Rhode Island Municipal Police Academy, Police Training Academy, RIMTA, better known as RIMTA. And the academy serves all the police departments in the state of Rhode Island with the exception of Providence and the state police. So any municipality that has a police department, a certified police officer, comes through this academy.
Okay, and so every municipality sends their police officers to this program that's, 6 months?
This is essentially, it's a 6-month program. They do 2 a year every year. So it really works out to be about 21, 22 weeks, depending on the holidays. And if we run into any problems with the schedule, like COVID. But yes, so the academy runs twice a year every year. And at any given academy, you've got probably somewhere around 24 to 26 police agencies sponsoring recruits at the academy.
For those of you listening at home who are interested in becoming a police officer, for most people, for everyone else, they're actually getting hired by a municipal police force first. So they go through an application process, they go through the interviews, they get selected, then they attend this academy, and then they go home to be a police officer.
Correct. So, and it's not the same in every state. In the state of Rhode Island, in order for you to become a police officer, you have to apply to a police department. That police department puts you through a very rigorous set of standards that you need to meet, application process that Recruit Walton had to go through. They then select you. You're offered, you're given a conditional offer of employment, and then they sponsor you at the academy. So you're getting paid to go to the academy, in most instances.
All right, and the Cpop program is the Rhode Island National Guard's program, still in a pilot, that sort of skips the first step of that. Right, so we've got soldiers attending this without having been hired by a municipality.
So it's almost as if the National Guard is your hiring municipality. They're going to put you through the steps that every other recruit would naturally go through if I was applying to said Cranston or Warwick. I do the same exact steps. People on our board, for hiring board, were all military, but they were also police officers in our local communities. At the end, you're conditional. We had to sign a conditional. The only benefit is and also a hamper at the current time, I guess, is that when we graduate, we didn't have a home. Hey, when you graduate, if you graduate the police academy and you get your post certification, you don't have a department you're going to. Good part is I can now kind of apply myself to any department in the state that I want to go to. Hey, I graduated. maybe I want to go and put myself in front of Cranston or Warwick or Tiverton and say, hey, sir, I know you guys are recently hiring. I'm already certified. It's going to cost you $0 to hire me. That is a huge benefit of the program. The only downside is during this pilot program, we kind of learning our way through it, taking the steps like, hey, what do we do for gear? What do we do for equipment? So all these little baby steps we got to work our way through. We did a fantastic job of doing it. But my point in case, I was hired by Tiverton Police Department about 3 weeks before the academy started. So, they were fortunate enough to give me a chance. I spoke to their chief and, it all worked out for me.
So your recruits, the Cpop recruits will leave with a post-certification.
Correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Sure. So in the state of Rhode Island, in order to serve as a police officer, you need to become a certified police officer. And the pathway to that is through the academy, whether it's the state police, Providence Police Academy, or the municipal police academy. The concept of the post, the Police Officers Commission on Standards and Training, oversees the curriculum, set the standards that everyone at the academy has to meet. If you fail to meet any one of those standards, you risk not graduating from the academy. So if you don't complete the academy in the time that the academy allots, you don't graduate and you don't get certified.
Got it. And having that certification allows you to go and apply for any of the municipalities?
With the exception of Providence.
With the exception of Providence. All right. So for those of you listening at home, big advantage there. We had touched on it just a little bit. Mm-hmm. That's like a no-cost, no-risk hire. Right.
Correct. So we have another recruit currently in this academy who is sponsored by the National Guard. He is still wearing the National Guard patch on his shoulder, so he doesn't have what you would consider almost a home when he graduates. But that just gives him more opportunity. He's had like 4 or 5 different municipalities reach out to him and say, hey, when you graduate, we want to talk to you. We want to hire you. Most recruits, actually all recruits, don't get that opportunity. They're coming here with the home already in mind. Hey, Warwick is sponsoring you. That means when you graduate, you're coming to Warwick. This recruit is able to talk to 4 or 5 different municipalities and almost weigh his odds. Like, hey, do I want to work here or do I want to work here? Which has the better contract? So he's in this awesome position to kind of see where he wants to see his future and almost put himself there because he's so unique in this current position.
So we talked a little bit before we started recording about how much of a financial advantage that is for the hiring municipality. The cost of background checks, the cost of gear, uniforms, the actual cost of finding and hiring somebody, having that liaison between the academy and the municipality. Seems like this would be a really attractive recruit to go out and hire.
I would agree. And I think the more comfortable the police chiefs become with this program, the more they're going to see it that way. So like anything new, guys were unsure, the police chiefs were unsure as to how this was going to work. They were very interested in understanding the whole concept of how the Guard was going to be able to sponsor 2 people. And there was just a lot of nuts and bolts that needed to be worked out and tightened up in order to make this thing work. So even as late as now, I'm still answering questions reference to how does the academy work? How can I get this guy hired? I didn't realize that it was happening this year. Or, any myriad of issues that some of these chiefs have. But a lot of the chiefs have become very excited about the prospect because now that Recruit Walton was already received an offer for a police department, they see that it actually can work. So it's kind of like seeing is believing. Sometimes they need to see it. Early on, a lot of the agencies that were inquiring had concerns about how do we make this person our recruit. So they needed to create a vehicle to make that happen because, as I'm sure you can imagine, each individual agency has its own hiring process. So in this case, that's not happening. The recruits are being sponsored by the Guard. So if Department X shows interest, hey, look, I want to take a look at this guy, they're going and getting his file, and that everything is already done for them. So it sounds like a small thing, but when you think about the amount of detail that goes into any one recruit's file, you're talking about their entire life's background, their psychological testing, any work history that may have had, military history in this particular case. So it's a lot of information that an agency would have gotten on its own. And so they're just uncomfortable, I think, with the fact that they haven't had to go out and get this, it's already done, it's already waiting for them. And now all they need to do is create a hiring vehicle, a way of then paying this guy and bring him onto their department. So that's really probably been the biggest hump that departments have had to get over. A number of agencies I know that have already reached out to, in this case, the National Guardsman that's going through the academy. They wanted to speak to these guys right away, and they're very impressed. And once they realized how simple this was going to be for them, well, I wish I had planned for this. I wish I had got money to hire these guys right away, because you run into you're obviously going to run into those. Towns have to be fiscally responsible, and they need to know how much money do we have to spend and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, they are saving a ton of money.
So it sounds like for the soldiers and airmen out there who want to be police officers, and I know there's a ton of them, right? Like we've both
right now,
yeah, tons of them.
Yep.
Sounds like they should still be applying to a regular hiring processes across the state, but they should also be applying for this program.
Put your name out there. I mean, I was applying to 3 or 4 different departments before I took a year break, and then when I came back, I was ready to start applying all over again. And then I just found this nice avenue of approach. But it's helpful when you're in this unique position with Cpop, because everyone you're competing against, they know your character and your morals and your work ethic because you're in the military. Your superiors get contacted about you, so it's a little more challenging because you're going against other A-type personalities, other military members who also want to be cops. It's not easy. It wasn't easy to get here, but it's a little more comfortable knowing that, hey, might be a step above the average person applying. That's going to help me move forward.
All right, so I think we've probably sold the program here. It sounds like a great program for both the municipalities and for the soldier. I'll plug the National Guard for 1 second here. It's a great program for us too. We get a lot of benefit from our actual police officers coming in, putting on the uniform on the weekend and bringing all of their knowledge and expertise. So we're about 3,100 soldiers and airmen, and about 770 of those are full time. Everybody else works out there in the real world, as we like to call it. And having someone who continues to put on a uniform and acquire experience and continues to serve brings a unique perspective, a unique skill set back to us on the weekends. So one of the reasons we started this program wasn't just to benefit you guys. It certainly was, but we actually want to have police officers in our organization. It's a huge bonus to us as well.
Even on the academy portion, I've already had 2 or 3 recruits come up to me. And it's like, hey, if I were to inquire about joining the military, like what's the next step forward? Just because there's probably about 8 to 10 recruits in there who are prior military. 2 or 3 are currently still serving in some type of reserve capacity. So word gets out there, and it's almost like a double-ended sword. Like we help put people as police officers if that's the career path they want to choose. And while you're in the academy, you might get some people who have always been interested in the military that never really knew how to start talking about it, and now we're in there, and we might be able to answer some questions they might have.
Yeah, great. So, I think we've sold the program. I'd like to talk a little bit about the academy itself, the experiences that someone might expect coming into the academy. I guess we'll start with you.
Sure.
Why don't you tell me a little about the 10 weeks you've been in?
This is week 10. Correct?
This is week 10.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about some of your experience?
Yeah. Prior to the academy start date, you're given plenty of warning about what to expect by word of mouth, or the academy puts out information that you need to read and adhere to. Being prior military, I was like, all right, I kind of know what I think I'm going to expect the first day, maybe the first week. You have a bunch of people that don't know each other, all walks of life. They have to break you down and build you back up. That's the mentality I went in with going into it. And then day 1 happened, which was for people in the prior military. They already know. You get there, always get there early. I was the first person in the parking lot at 06. It's way too early. I had to leave and come back. And then all the rest of the recruits started showing up. And, head shaven, have our suits on. You can kind of tell some people were like prepared for this. They had the straight face. Some were nervous. And then we were advised to go report in the parking lot we're supposed to report in. And then they just have you sit in your car. And I'm like, well, this is weird. Usually shark attacks happen much faster than this. And I'm sitting in my car, and probably 2-ish hours went by. I think it felt like 2 hours. And then I look in my rearview mirror and I just see a mass formation of maybe 60 police officers walk out of a building. And I go, okay, this is the shark attack I was waiting for. And it was just what you expect. I mean, it was hard day one, the heat, proper hydration. Professional indoctrination is the best way to put it. You want to be a police officer? Well, prove that you deserve to be here, because you can quit at any time. You don't have to be here. You wanted to be here. And they just kept reinforcing that. They wanted to see who really wanted it. And that day one carried into day two, into the second week, into the 10th week, even today. It's always in the forefront of your mind. You don't have to be here. You chose this profession. Prove you want to be here.
So we use the phrase shark attack pretty often here. Is that a phrase you guys use?
So no, we don't. We have many other words for it. But what it really boils down to, and it's difficult to explain this concept to people that have either never served in the military or don't work in something like law enforcement. The academy is designed to generate anxiety, because this type of career is a very anxiety-provoking type of career. And we need to assess how you react to anxiety, how you react to pressure. So day one is their first, in most cases, unless you've been in the military, it's your first time experiencing anything like that. So it provides the instructors an opportunity, a unique one, to see just how well you're going to react to type of stress that chances are you've never experienced before. And that concept is carried out throughout the entire academy. The academy continuously places their recruits in positions that are uncomfortable, that are anxiety-provoking, that requires them to, in some instances, think, in other instances, react, in many instances, both. And the effort is we do it so that we can properly assess just how prepared you are, whether or not you're learning and benefiting from the training, and then able to apply it to these situations. And if we're not seeing progress, then this is somebody that can't move through the academy. Fortunately, we usually see people progress. But that's really what it's all about.
I love that language. We like to make them uncomfortable. It's like the most understated way of putting that. Like, we're going to practice being uncomfortable, guys. And you're like, oh, that doesn't sound so bad.
Still feeling it.
No, that's great. So, obviously, you've been through basic training. You've been
Right.
through AIT. You were MOSQ'd 31 Bravo.
11 Bravo.
11. Oh, that's
Then
right.
switched to 31 Bravo.
Switch to 31
Yes.
Bravo.
Yep.
All right. So, having gone through the Fort Benning School for Men,
Yes.
how prepared did you feel for this? And did you end up being prepared? Was it just a feeling, or were you prepared?
Yep. Prior to, I had you kind of know what's expected for PT. And you do the best in your own capability to PT properly. Eating properly, proper nutrition, the right way to eat, the nutrition, hydration. Normal PT you'd think you would be prepared for. And then you get here, and it's not like basic training and the police academy are not the same. I think it is much more difficult in this academy than flashbacks when I was 17. I thought in the best shape of my life, 18-year-old kid. It is much more physically demanding here. Even though we don't sleep over at night like you do at basic, it's just because it's never ending. As soon as you pass one evolution, you're expected to now move to the next one. There's no rest, there's no break, because you're uncomfortable. You're going to stay uncomfortable, but find a way past it. You adapt and you adhere to the academy. The academy won't adapt to you. I thought that I was relatively prepared, and then you find out really quick that you're not prepared. And it's okay. I thought that, hey, I'm not where I need to be. I just got to make sure that I get where I need to be when I'm supposed to be there. And so far, fortunate enough, I'm still here sitting in the seat. So, a lot more weeks to come. Tomorrow's a big day for us, but I think I'm mentally prepared. And in my mind, if I'm mentally sound, my body will do what it needs to do.
All right. So 21 or 22 weeks is a long time to have someone from a physical training perspective, right? That's just shy of 6 months. Which, you're not going to build a pro athlete in 6 months, but you can certainly train somebody to do some stuff. Can you give me an idea of what level of physicality you would expect out of a recruit, and then what level of physicality you expect out of a graduate?
So it's an interesting question. And the reason it's very interesting is we're training the recruits physically to meet certain standards that play out in certain blocks of instruction. So it's not just about physical fitness. It's physical fitness to perform a function. So when you put it in that context, the fitness programs that we institute start to make a little bit of sense. So you're not looking to make anybody a super runner. You're not trying to make anybody a power lifter. You're trying to make somebody that is physically capable of executing the various physical elements of this type of work. So that's where the program's geared. And oftentimes, a good way to look at it, I guess, is to think about this, the halfway point where they have their use of force defensive tactics test out. So a lot of the conditioning that we do is geared towards preparing them for that test. It's a particularly difficult test to pass. It's very physically grueling and mentally challenging. And so a lot of the training that we do there is designed for that. After that point, a lot of the PT starts to drop off because we just no longer have the time. The curriculum starts to really ramp up. You have emergency vehicle operations course, DUI training, firearms. These are large blocks of instruction that oftentimes involve the recruits being off campus. And so we lose the opportunity to really zero in on a lot of the training. So most of the physical training that we do with them is that first 10 weeks. The latter part, the hope is that we've instilled in them the need to remain physically fit. Because this is where it's a pleasure working with guys coming out of the military, is they have a certain degree of maturity that we were talking about earlier, that they get the hint, hey, look, we're giving you a taste of what your life of the next 30 years is going to be. And you need to be in shape because these challenges aren't going to go away, and oftentimes they're going to pop up in front of you when you least expect it. But here at the academy, in the academy bubble, we need to move on in the training. So that physical aspect of the training really doesn't remain. It remains, but not to the nth degree. It's not super intense. After that 10th week, that physical training portion starts to break off a little bit because we just don't have the time.
One of the things I want to key in on is PT for life, PT for longevity. So I made terrible mistakes when I was 18, 19, 20, 21. I worked out the way the Army taught me to work out, which is run really fast until you throw up every single day, right? And ended up giving myself all kinds of repetitive movement injuries, right? Just all kinds of arthritis, all kinds of back issues, and didn't learn how to actually work out for longevity, for health, until I was probably 30 and already had a long history of injuries. So what I want to talk about a little bit, I know it's a segue from Cpop. I want to talk a little bit about what you've done after having learned that lesson.
Okay.
And then I really want to talk about what you've done, because, I mean, you're clearly in phenomenal shape at 50. I mean, yeah. So 17, you thought you were in shape, you weren't. Walk me through that.
So I let basic training in my mind got me into shape. I didn't go to basic training like in the best shape of my life. I was always a skinny kid growing up, tall and skinny. So I thought I can run pretty damn well, so I'm just going to keep going with that. Went through basic, went through AIT, came back, and I'm like, nope, I'm still a good runner. I don't have a big upper torso. I'm not massive in my legs. I've just always been a slim kid. I'll keep with running. So it's been running, speed, and then kind of got into a lull where I was like, well, I'm kind of settled at where I'm at in life. I think PT is kind of dropping. I'm pretty much going to be doing what I'm doing right now for the remainder of my life, and I'm not really getting too physical. So why do I really have to exert myself? Then I had a career change in my head, which was the police academy. I was like, okay, I need to start getting out of that bad mentality because it was toxic. I had no weightlifting experience, no upper body muscle movement group experience, nothing. Could I have found it online? Sure. Could I have found a trainer? Absolutely. But I didn't. And then I came here, and it was eye-opening to talk to other recruits who have had that experience or even doing it in the academy, never realizing proper form, proper technique, or what goes into preparation and healthy movement. It's all about how you do it properly to longevity of your health. So and now moving forward, I've already had discussions with, outside memberships of gyms and stuff to say, hey, when this is done, I need to keep up with this because I've seen how important it is in the short term, but then the overall arcing, hey, if you do this now, you don't realize why in 10 weeks you might need this. So I've seen it all.
And how about you?
So I've been fortunate that even as a young kid, physical fitness was a priority in my family. I come from a family of 4 boys. We were all wrestlers. My dad, who was a pretty reasonable guy, had very few non-negotiable rules, but one was you will play a sport. So I grew up just being an athletic person, and then later in life, as I became a trooper, that just carried over. So, look, if you're going to choose this type of career, and I would think the military is very similar, if you're letting yourself fall out of shape, you're becoming a liability to yourself and to those people around you. And in my mind, I would never allow that to happen. I would never allow my physical well-being, and it is well-being because it's mental health as well as physical. I would not allow that to suffer, and then in turn jeopardize either my life or the life of those people who are working with me. So I've managed to keep myself in shape. I'm a weightlifter. That's what I do primarily. But as I've gotten older, I've adapted some of the CrossFit training mentality as well, to keep myself moving.
Yeah, I mean, adding weights was the trick for me too. So I come from the Army School of Physical Fitness, which is, again, you just run as fast as you can for as long as you can until you vomit, and then you drink a case of beer and come back the next day and do it all again, which is terrible for a number of reasons.
100%.
The repetitive use injuries, right? We just
Knees and
shin
back.
splints all the time, back all the time. I have arthritis in both of my knees. And it turns out you actually can't outrun drinking a case of beer every day, believe it or not. It seems like you can when you're 18 because you probably enter the Army at like 8% body fat.
Correct. That was yep.
Yeah.
Just about.
But you drink a case of beer every day, and guess what? You're not going to be at 8% body fat for very long. And so I was probably like late in my 20s when I added weightlifting and stretching. And that has made all of the world of difference in terms of how I feel every single day. So obviously 35 isn't that old. My career's only 13 years deep. But I can imagine where I would feel much better if I had done this much earlier. So for those listening at home, finding a physical regimen, I don't know what the word is, finding a physical activity that you can keep up with and use that to just keep your body healthy, just huge quality of your life improvement. And then we'll move on back to Cpop.
Okay.
All right, so if you could do it again,
Sure.
you now know what day 1, week 10, you know the physicality. How would you prepare for that? Imagine we have a 19, 20-year-old MP,
Okay.
stellar person. They make it through the process. We select them, but they're like 19. What do they know? What's your advice to them to prepare?
So, nutrition, proper food groups, and preparing your body before coming to the academy is crucial. Not that I wasn't unhealthy either. I just wasn't eating the proper food groups all the time. There are some superfoods out there that I learned at in the academy that really make a difference when you're exerting your body to the level that we're exerting it and how to replenish it for the next day. So proper eating and looking up nutrition values leading up to the academy is crucial. Hydration's a given, including like electrolytes, not just water. But then for physical fitness portion, running is good. Running is really good, but learning how to, it's almost body pliability. Get your body stretching and moving in ways that probably your joints probably haven't moved in a long time. Even simple things from holding things above your head seemed like the second nature. You grab something, put it above your head. But then you start adding some significant weight to it. You're like, wow, my shoulder's kind of hurting after 20, 30 seconds. We just started doing some weightlifting stuff in the academy, and I think it makes a night and day difference. The entire academy, sir, absolutely loves it. So having no experience with that, it was okay. I had no experience. I didn't freak out. I learned from my instructors and moved forward. But the academy will not get you in stellar shape. You have to come to the academy prepared to do that. So like you have to come to the academy already in shape, if that makes sense. I don't know how to put it. Like, you can't come here fat and think they're going to make you skinny. You got to come here in good shape, and they're just going to make you even better. So if I had to go back to day 1, I would have incorporated some weight training and sprints, like shuttle sprints type stuff, because explosiveness power is crucial here with what I'm seeing in training today. That explosiveness power is really important.
What about you, sir? My 19-year-old 31 Bravo's just been selected. She's got, I don't know, 10 weeks before the academy starts. What is she doing?
She's late. She's late if she hasn't gotten herself in shape already. I think what Recruit Walton articulated was really accurate. The academy's not designed to get you in shape. It's designed to make you in better shape for the types of tasks you're going to be expected to do. So we expect you to come to the academy in good shape, at least capable of running 4 or 5 miles, capable of doing exercises like burpees and push-ups and pull-ups and different types of core exercises. We expect that you're coming to the academy able to do that already. And we're just going to take that common denominator and we're going to build on it. Unfortunately, that isn't always the case. People come to the academy with this mindset, so I'll just get in shape. And that just, unfortunately, it doesn't happen, because oftentimes if you don't come prepared, if this person doesn't do what she needs or he needs to do to get into good shape, is you get to the academy, you're trying your hardest, and it's typically not effort that's the issue, but you're trying really hard, and then you get hurt because your body's taking such a beating daily, every day, that cumulative effect gets to the point where now maybe you've got shin splints, maybe you've got a pulled hamstring, and now that nagging injury turns into something that just becomes debilitating. So I would strongly encourage them to do pretty much exactly what Recruit Walton articulated, is to, if you're thinking running far enough, run a little further. If you think you're doing enough push-ups, do a few more. And pay very close attention to what you're eating and how much sleep you're getting, and making sure that psychological component of mindfulness, being conscious of your body's health and of your mind's health before you get here. Because when you get here, we're going to make life miserable for you, which is what we do. So you really want to come here in as good a physical shape, a mental shape, spiritual shape as you can possibly be, because we're going to find your weakness, we're going to exploit it, so that you can see it in 3D color, 1080p, and then teach you how to overcome that, or use other ways to overcompensate or compensate for your weaknesses. So come prepared, come physically prepared.
So that's a great segue into my next kind of line of questions. Both of our lines of work has a proclivity to be very taxing, emotionally taxing, mentally taxing, intellectually taxing. What advice would you give someone to prepare themselves for that kind of just everyday tax? We'll keep using that word over again.
So I try not to give advice. It's very expensive, and who am I to give advice? But I would make a suggestion. So in my experience, I found that being conscious and willing to recognize your own limitations is very useful. It does a few things for you. Number one, it helps you understand where you are mentally, where you are physically. So, being introspective. And then being willing to say, okay, you know what, I'm really not good at, let's stick with running. I'm really not a good runner. So I need to recognize that. I need to accept the fact that, all right, I'm not a good runner. Now, what do I need to do to get to the point that I'm a good enough runner to be able to do what it is that I want to do, in this case, become a police officer. So I guess that's kind of one of the more important things I would suggest, is that you spend some time reflecting about your capabilities, recognize your weaknesses, we all have them, and then do whatever it is you need to do to not be weak in those areas anymore.
How about you? What are some tips and tricks you use to stay mentally, emotionally resilient?
So this line of work, you have to have a strong, the academy is not every day. At some point, you will go home, back to your home and your family. So it's important to also let them know, hey, this is the line of work I'm going to be getting into. We kind of haven't experienced that with the military. If you have a military family, they kind of understand how grueling it can be sometimes. But having a good home structure just has one less variable on your mental stress throughout the day. If you can shut off home for a little bit when you're in the academy, worry about the academy, and then knowing that home is taken care of, it helps. Another thing is you have to be humble. There are some things that you're just not going to be good at, that you used to be good at a few years ago. And then all of a sudden you're in the academy with a kid 4 years younger than you, and he's stellar at this one thing you thought you could do. Be humble. You're not going to be great at everything. They're going to point out your weakness, not because they hate you or because they're doing it to make fun of you, but it's that, hey, if they can verbalize what I'm bad at or what I'm not that great at, they do help you get past your weaknesses. You have to know about your weaknesses that you probably become subconscious to because you live with it every day. But when someone's watching you do something, they can point it out in a heartbeat and say, that's wrong. We're going to show you why it's wrong, and let's work past it, and let's get over that somehow. And that's kind of what I see almost every day, and it helps a lot. It's an interesting experience because I've been 8 years moved from basic, and you have that at basic training, and then you get out of basic for 8 years, and then you go back to another academy, and it's like kind of rejuvenating again. Hey, let's fix your issues.
What about mentally, like academically? Is there read ahead material? Do you guys send out like intellectual read ahead academic material?
So there is some material we'll push out to the recruits to have them read or be prepared to answer questions on. The vast majority of the material they get is given to them in the classroom, and then there may be homework assignments relative to that. We will do things to help them develop skills that involve reading assignments. For example, very, very recently, each recruit was told he needed to go home, he needed to get a book. It could be on anything, didn't have to be law enforcement related, and has to provide every Monday a summary of what he's read up to that point. And the goals there are to get you reading, because the more you read, the better you will be in writing. I'm convinced of that. But it also gets you writing more. So you have to sit down now, you have to organize your thoughts, okay? You have to have comprehended the material that you read, conceptualized it, ordered it in your mind, and then speak to that in this interdepartmental that you then have to write weekly. So these types of exercises happen all throughout the academy.
Okay. Would you describe it as being intellectually challenging? Like, what's the classroom work like? What's the classroom load like? How challenging is it from like an intellectual standpoint?
Yeah, so right on day 2 of the academy, you start rolling right into classrooms. And we're at the kind of halfway point now where the classes we've been taking for the past 9 weeks, we have our final exams on. So we've had a few final exams already, like law, motor vehicle. We have an exam just before this podcast. We'll have an exam after this podcast. It is grueling, but it's not an overwhelming sense that I don't have enough time to get this information, retain it, and pass. Like, you'll have time to do that if you apply yourself. At the end of the day, you go home and you have your kind of checklist you have to do. I have to iron my uniforms. I have to wash my clothes. I have to polish my boots. I have to make my meals for the next day. But then I also have to have a block for study time too, because if you don't study at all, you're not going to be where you need to be academically. And if you're going to this academy with somebody else, where you rank in the class, if you're going to the same department, puts you at your seniority level. If we're going to the same department, you have a higher class average than me. When we get out of here, you're above me, like in class ranking. But the academics here they're challenging, but they give you the information you need and the ability to, like, nothing will catch you by surprise. You know everything you need to know up front. Here's the instructors that teach these classes, by the way, a little shout out, are fantastic. Everyone that comes in to teach their specific task, they're subject matter experts. They know everything. So you'll never leave a class with questions. If you have a burning question, they'll answer it, and they'll make sure you understand it before you just walk away.
Okay. So if I got my 26-year-old 31 Bravo, he's never really liked school that much. It's been a long time since he's been in school. I know you don't give advice. What can he do, sort of shake the cobwebs out of his head, knock the rust off, and prepare for the classroom intellectual portion of this?
So the first would be to recognize that law enforcement is not brain surgery. You know, we're not trying to teach you all these different complex things. I mean, law enforcement can become complicated, and in your career, you'll get training that is complex. But at the basic academy level, that's not the goal. The goal is to teach you the foundation the basic pillars that you need to get your career underway. The difficulty is there are a lot of those pillars. So it's not that the material is necessarily intellectually challenging, although there is some of that. There's just a lot of it. And then add the fact that we are stressing you out all the time. And again, this is by design. This is to assess you to see how you react. How capable are you at multitasking? Something that police officers have to be able to do. And can you not just multitask, but multitask when you're under pressure? So although the academic work isn't super challenging in and of itself, it becomes challenging because you have time constraints that you have to meet. There are other additional responsibilities that you're required to do. And there's the specter of something that some scenario we may have to work through tomorrow, or there'll be some team project that we'll have to work on that we don't know yet, but we know is coming. There's always that sense of anticipation that creates that anxiety, again, with giving the instructors the opportunity to assess you, not just can he pass this test. You know, I would be very confident that most people who graduate high school or have a college diploma can handle the academics, the raw academics that are offered at the academy. The bigger question, though, is can you pass academically while under stress, while struggling with anxiety, and are you really conceptualizing the material, or are you just memorizing or remembering it for that test? And what we're trying to do is present material in such a way that they're not just going to pass the test, but they're going to actually learn the lesson and then be able to apply those lessons practically, which is where the experiential model of training comes into play. And we put them in scenarios where now they actually have to execute what they've learned in the books or learned in the classroom.
I want to talk a little bit about prerequisites. So someone who's considering this at home and is saying, gosh, am I eligible for this? Do you need a criminal justice degree to be a cop?
So that will vary from agency to agency. So for example, the state police requires a high school diploma or GED only. Some agencies require a bachelor's degree, and some may even require it to be specifically in criminal justice. So that'll vary. So if this is an area of, if this is a career you're looking at, and you start looking at various departments that you're interested in, you want to be sure that you're asking what are their requirements.
Okay. What about requirements for the Cpop program? Like what was our requirement?
So you had to have at least 3 years remaining on your contract. And if you didn't, you just had to make sure you extended it so it would be 3 years. It's kind of like the buyback. Hey, we'll give you this program. Just give us 3 years of military service. It was open to any rank. So even, E2s, E3s were applying with me on this board. Be in good standing, not flagged for PT. There was no degree requirement. There was no, if you're in the military, you have a high school diploma or a GED, so you already passed that prerequisite. You're within good standing, lawfully, you should be. So the background check was still done, but it was very, typical.
And when you went through, it was 31 Bravos and security forces.
Correct. When I went through.
We have lifted that for the next class. So
huge.
Yeah. So I think the current plan is to collect applications for a January or February board for a next summer class. So the same class you're in, just 1 year from now.
Correct.
So for those of you at home, there will not be an MOS requirement for the next one. It's a big one.
Yeah, I've talked to a few of my buddies who were in the air side or other MOSs, and they're like, I don't know how we can get a part of this. I was like, switch your MOS, join the MPs. I'm still saying switch your MOS, join the MPs. But yeah, now that it's open to all MOSs, that's crucial.
And we will not switch you automatically to the 43rd MP Brigade if you get into this program. So if you're worried about losing your...
Correct, yeah.
So that's not going to happen. So obviously this is a full-time program, right? We're talking many hours a week, at least 40, probably more. No one's going to hold down 2 jobs while doing this. This is a big-time commitment. How have your recruits balanced that in the past? What level of support do they need? What can they expect in terms of the time and commitment this is going to take?
So that's a great question, and it varies from recruit to recruit. Some recruits have families, some of these recruits have children of their own. and some are single and have a much easier life. So different degrees of responsibilities come into play. So you really want to make sure before you make this leap that your family is part of the equation, part of that decision-making process, because you need that support. You need to know that this is something your entire family wants to be committed to, because that if you can't commit 100% to this type of career, it's going to be really difficult to make it work. So it's something I would definitely encourage. Look, we want you guys. We want guys from the military. We think very, very highly of guys who come from the Guard, come from the military, and have the benefit of the experiences that military personnel get, especially in deployment and training. But we really need your families to be on board, because you're talking about, nowadays, a 30-year career, 30 years of your life dedicated to law enforcement. You want to make sure that if you already have a family, that they're all on board. So I would encourage people that have families to bring them into that decision-making process, make sure that they want this for you and for them. I think that's very important.
Yeah, that's good advice for just soldiers and airmen in general, and I assume police throughout their entire career. Happy wife, happy life isn't just a colloquialism. That's
a real thing.
That's a very real thing. And we had talked about it a little bit earlier, some of that mental resilience, right? We talked about emotional health, and having the family support be there is just a huge component of that, right? Like if things are not set at home, you're going to carry that into work with you. And in our line of work, your line of work, our line of work, bringing stuff from home and being distracted and not being fully present can get people hurt and can get people killed. So I can't say enough how much I believe what you just said, that when you join the Army and you have a family, your family's a part of the Army too, and they didn't join, but they're a part of it anyway. And finding a way to make that a more comfortable experience, a more inclusive, bought-in, everyone's on the same page experience is absolutely critical. Cannot be overstated how important that is.
Things can go bad. So, you're missing the holidays as a police officer and as a soldier, I'm sure. You're not home when most parents are at home. Oftentimes, especially if you're working nights, you're up when everybody else is asleep. That's the nature of the beast. And you're going to miss chunks of your family's life. And you need to be open about that if you're considering this career. And you need to be your family, you need to work that out with your family to see, hey, look, is this something that we're going to be able to live with for the next 30 years? I can tell you, as a 25-year veteran of law enforcement, it is an incredible career. You get to meet people that nobody else gets to meet. You get to do things that nobody else gets to do. You get to serve your community. In my case, I get to serve the state of Rhode Island, and it's an absolute phenomenal experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. But it comes at a cost. And oftentimes it's the family that feels that the most, because they're not out there getting to do all these things. They're home, wishing that you could make the birthday party or the graduation. So, you and I are definitely on the same page there. It's essential.
Yeah, it's not always holidays and birthdays. One of the hardest things for me personally is the hurricane, the blizzard, right? Everyone else is running to the store and hunkering down with their families and getting their families safe. And I'm in my little Jeep Patriot driving to work, being like, well, sweetheart, I hope you and the dogs are okay. For me, that's the worst. I know for her, me missing birthdays is the worst. But for me, it's like not knowing if my house is going to be there.
Yeah.
And I am not there to get them out. I am not there to restore power or turn the generator on or repair the furnace when it floods. Or, just like the simple things for me is the hardest. So having a wife that has bought into that is huge. Having in-laws, my parents don't live local, but her parents do. So having in-laws that buy into that, and they're like, all right, well, your wife can come to our house during the hurricanes. That's a huge part of my support structure, and I think we all navigate that a little differently. But the need for the support structure, I think, is universal.
Well, one of the great things about law enforcement, and this is particularly true in the state of Rhode Island because of our size and the number of different agencies that we have here, is when you become a police officer, you're now part of a large family of police officers. And so take your example, and let's say you live in Warwick, but your job puts you in Situate and power goes out in Warwick, or a tree goes down in your neighborhood and you're like, oh my God, my wife and my kid are there. A phone call over to Warwick PD, those officers are going to go by your house. They're going to make sure she's okay. They're going to make sure that if she needs anything, that gets taken care of for you. And then they're going to get on the horn and let you know, hey, look, we got a guy there. Everything's okay. They've already checked. We'll keep going by there every hour on the hour to make sure she's all right. So you have that now. You've bought into this. You've paid the price, but you've bought into this huge collective family that is now at your disposal, at your service, just as readily as they are at the service of the community. So it's a pretty special thing.
That does sound good. We're not quite that tight. We have family readiness groups that are phenomenal, but they're not every hour on the hour. But so I want to switch gears for a little bit, get away from the sad stuff. Tell me a little bit about the hardest thing you've done so far, the toughest day.
So the toughest day up until this point right now was probably just the first day, day one. And it's not because it's just the fear of the unknown. I have no idea what I'm getting into. And throughout the entire day, you keep reminding yourself, this is what I want to do with my life. Is this the career I want? Like, I'm here because I wanted to be here. Like, is it worth it type stuff? And I never had the thought that I wanted to quit at all. But those thoughts run through your mind. They're almost natural. And because the staff helps by reiterating it over and over to you. Moving forward, the hardest piece I've experienced throughout this entire academy is just dealing with the stresses that's induced on you. Some by your own accord, like you bring some unwanted stresses and you have to carry them throughout the day, but still function normally. Some are brought on by the academy itself. And each day or each week is almost a new stress that you kind of weren't expecting. And then you have to find a way to make it work. Sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes you bounce over it quick. Like I said, it was 8 years removed from the last time I went through a rigorous academy like this. So jumping back into it was kind of like a deja vu moment of like, okay, I've been in a similar situation. How do I get past this? But, I have 11 more weeks, 12 more weeks of this. I'm nowhere near done yet. I know I'm going to be pushed to my limits, and that's what they want to see out of everybody, is pushed to their absolute limits and see how they perform. So, hopefully I'm ready.
And what is it that gets you through your limits? What gets you to stay, come back?
Stubbornness. I don't want to disappoint my family. And I know that sounds stupid, but like, I don't want to be a disappointment saying I went through all this. Even though it's my career, you have your support structure looking up to you saying, yep, you can do this. You go home every day. They ask about your day. And you're like, oh, okay, my day was like this. And they say, well, what's happening tomorrow? And you tell them like, oh, don't worry, you'll be fine. You're going to get through it. And it's like, all right. But like, I don't want to, I made it this far. I want to see it to the end. Even if it's my own stubbornness, my own will to keep going, I'm not going to quit. I just want to see myself in a uniform, supporting the community as a police officer, and I'll do whatever it takes to do it.
What about you? What gets you through your hard days?
It depends on how hard they are. I think Recruit Walton has really articulated a universal answer. Family is huge. I've been married for 27 years, so knowing that I have a very supportive wife is really a big part of what keeps me going. But then I love this job. I love the work I do. I love the challenge that law enforcement brings. It is very, very stimulating. And, I'm not a golfer, but from what I understand, it's that one good shot that you make that keeps you coming back. It's similar in law enforcement. It's that one opportunity where you really made a difference in somebody's life, maybe even saved somebody's life, or arrested a really, really nasty criminal, or whatever it is that's your niche. But those types of things have always kept me highly motivated and very eager to get back to work the next day.
Awesome. For me, it's always gratitude. Gratitude keeps me coming back. So
we don't get a lot of that. Not lately.
Not from others. Not from others. Oh, for me, everything I have, I owe to this organization. I was an aimless, failed carpenter at 21 years old. No degree, and absolutely no prospects. I was bouncing from retail work to construction work to retail work, making no money, going nowhere. And enlisted in the ring. It gave me my degree. It gave me, actually all of my degrees were because of the ring. I inadvertently met my wife because of the ring. The best full-time jobs I've ever had have come from the ring. And when I'm having a tough day and I'm just like, I don't want to do this anymore. The salt is too thick. I'm going home. It's always this like, the ring deserves more from me. The ring has given me more than I've given to the ring. So I'll come back tomorrow. That's my tip, what keeps me going. So we're kind of heading towards the end of our podcast here. But I want to give you the opportunity to add. Actually, I'm sorry, I have one more question.
Yeah, shoot.
So I'm picturing a bunch of young soldiers.
Okay.
Not a ton of experience. Maybe they're in their first, maybe early in their second enlistment. They've heard this. They're thinking to themselves, this might be the right program for me. I've always wanted to be a cop. It's why I got in the National Guard. But now I'm 24 and working at Macy's. I'm stuck in a rut. I'm thinking about this. What do you want to say to them?
That is a heavy question.
These are the soldiers I worry about.
Yeah.
No one should have to work at Macy's for the rest of their life.
No. First of all, you can do this. There are recruits in this academy that have all walks of life and ages. So the age limit shouldn't stop you no matter what age you are, if this is something you really want to do. Just have that awareness that even if you're on your first enlistment in the military and you go to a police academy, or specifically this one, you're going to be treated like everybody else, but they're going to expect more from you. They don't care what rank you were, what your background was, what your job was. Come here ready to have more expected out of you in the best way possible, because you're going to be with people that have no experience about anything related to structure, organization, chain of command, nothing. But you have that knowledge. You might be a 21-year-old kid and you have the person next to you be 40. You have more knowledge and he might be looking at you. So step up in a huge way. Have that family support structure that we talked about. If it's something you seriously want to do, have that gut check, because the academy is going to give it to you, but have your own gut check too to make sure this is something you're about to dive in. And give it 110%, and you will come out on the other side if you do. As long as you give it your all, and you know you're giving it your all. Like if you go home at the end of the day, you say, you know what? I probably could have ran a little bit faster. I probably could have done a few more push-ups. That's your own guilt you're going to be taking home with you, but the next day make sure you push out, because that's what the academy wants out of you. That's what your classmate next to you wants out of you. You can do this. It is a absolute blessing that I'm in this spot that I'm in. I can't even begin to explain how awesome it is, and it's just worth it.
Okay. How might someone know if law enforcement is the right career path for them?
Well, that's going to vary from person to person, right? I can answer for myself, and that is you've got to want to be a servant to the community. You are a public servant. So for me, I was highly motivated to go after bad guys. I wanted to become a police officer because I wanted to go after bad guys. But it's in service of the state, in my case, with the state police. In the case of the municipalities, there has to be some common denominator of serving your community, because that's what you are. You're a public servant. And you so eloquently described your motivation and the gratitude you have towards Ring, and it's the same. It's for that population that you're referring to. It's that same thing is going to be the case if they find themselves interested in law enforcement. That law enforcement is going to present them with a multitude of opportunities in ways that they might not even be able to imagine. But if you want to come in and you want to be a public servant as a law enforcement officer, this type of career is going to make opportunities for you once you get in that door. You've got to get through the academy. You got to do it. And I'm telling you, as a member of the Guard, you have a jump start. For the reasons Recruit Walton's already described, and others, you've got a jump start. Agencies are going to be attracted to you for those qualities that the Guard has either instilled in you or advanced within you. Those are things that we're going to like, law enforcement's going to like, and it's going to pay dividends. for a very long time.
All right. Well, thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close up for the day?
Other than to just encourage, if you're thinking about it, talk to your recruiters, talk to your chain of command, come down to us here at the Academy. We'll be happy to speak to you. I encourage you to walk into any police agency and ask to speak to people there, check their websites. You can call the Rhode Island Municipal Police Training Academy directly. The number's very easy to find, and we'll be happy to field any questions. We want to encourage guys from the Guard to come down here and give this a shot. We really want them. We want this program to succeed. We want to expand upon it in the future. We're very excited about it.
We're very excited to be a part of it. Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add before we close?
I think the lieutenant has hit every major point moving into it. I'm excited to see what happens in the future, and I'd love to sit down with you at the end of all this too. If I'm ever so grateful to graduate, at the end of all this, to have a kind of a recap and see how this experience has changed me. But I think I thank you for your time. I have an exam to go study for.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us.
No problem.
Thank you.